Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. I'm your host, Stephen Nooner.
And I'm the other host, Bob Gibbons.
And today we have a very special guest for all you
unusual guest.
Yes, very unusual.
Very strange.
Yes. Today we have the man, the myth, the legend of the legends, Don Crawford, owner and CEO of KAAM and other stations. To learn more about KAAM Radio, visit KAAMradio.com. Welcome, Don.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We're glad you're here with us today.
So am I.
I know this may seem weird because you're the owner of the station, but we ask you to be our guest today.
Yes.
And we're appreciative of that.
And I'm grateful too.
All right, you might want to reserve that statement until the end of it.
Okay, give me 25 minutes.
So we always start our shows with wisdom from others before we get the wisdom from you. Mm-hmm. And so Stephen has a quote that he's come up with today. Who's your wisdom from today, Stephen?
I'm going to go with Dr. Darius Daniels from Kingdom Church. Mm-hmm. He says, honesty doesn't weaken a friendship. It exposes if you really have one.
Ah, very good.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you things that you don't want to hear and we can still be friends?
Depends
Is that
if
the point?
It's the truth.
Oh, so if it's not the truth, then we have a problem. But if it's the truth?
Well, there's only so much not truth that I'm going to stand, and then I can't be friends with you anymore.
You can lie about me, and I'm going to be okay with it. I might even appreciate it, but if it's the truth,
no,
that hurts.
No, I mean, I thought it was really, to me, I really liked this. He tweeted it. I actually saw him. He was a guest pastor at our church, and I started following him afterwards, and he tweeted this one day, and I was like, man, that's true, because as our company has grown and as things have happened, I so find myself just hungry for people to tell me the truth. Sometimes I wonder, is it because we're paying them, or because that am I really getting the hard answer that maybe I don't want to hear?
Well, and as an owner of a business or a manager, even if it's not the business I own, I never wanted yes men to work for me. Right. I mean, what a waste of time a yes man is, because if they're just telling you what you want to hear, you don't need them.
Exactly.
Well, not just that. How do you make any progress? I like the other quote: all meaningful, progress begins with telling the truth. Well, if you're not connected to the truth, then you're a sitting duck.
Yeah.
And I know, and as anyone who knows me really well, I have many, many blind spots. So I need the truth. So keep telling me the truth, Bob.
One of your blind spots is growing a beard, by the way.
Yeah. We'll save that for another show.
Hey, Don, tell us something about yourself that nobody knows.
Something about myself no one knows?
Well, or most people don't know.
Wow. Again, I was ill-prepared for this, so please don't hold it against me. Something no one knows. Probably what my favorite food is.
Which is?
You'll have to guess. I can't make this that easy for you, gentlemen.
Escargot.
Escargot. Not bad, no. It's pretty obvious.
Fried chicken.
Pizza.
How's that obvious?
Well, it's usually, I think that's people's favorite food almost worldwide.
Oh, yeah, that's probably
If you
true.
ask people what their favorite food, I think pizza is the first one.
I've never been to a country where they didn't have that.
That what?
Have pizza available.
Yes.
Well, you've only been in the United States, right?
this week.
The problem is I'm low carb, and pizza is not low carb.
Oh, and then throw in gluten-free, and you're really
well, I can do the gluten-free. I eat Udi's Pizza, frozen, that kind of thing, so I don't have the gluten in there. But, yeah, it's loaded with carbohydrates, unfortunately.
Which you're not lactose or milk intolerant, right?
No.
Okay, well, you're good then.
So far.
We better turn this to business.
Or sweet sir is good, yeah. So tell us about your journey. I mean, obviously we met you through your ownership of KAAM. Mm-hmm. How did that begin? You've got, I understand, a family history of entrepreneurship and radio.
Yes, we do. Thank you. I would say it goes back to my grandfather, who was a televangelist in the 50s, late 40s, early 50s. And he did a program on television on the ABC network nationwide called Youth on the March. and that was a program where he taught and preached about the gospel and Jesus Christ. And my uncles, aunt, and father and grandmother all sang worship music during the program.
Wow.
And I don't, you made me think of something. I don't recall my grandfather ever singing. I have to ask my father that, but I don't think in the videos I've seen he sings. He just sits back and smiles and watch everybody perform, basically.
He's praying for him.
Yes. So, and then what happened was in the late 50s, he died of a heart attack, 1959 as a matter of fact, right after the ABC network threw him off the air and said, we don't want that religious stuff on the air anymore.
Wow.
And he was able to purchase a number of bankrupt radio stations in order to spread the gospel. And then he died. Billy Graham gave his eulogy at his funeral. They were very close friends in the 50s. And that left my father, the oldest, sort of holding the bag and not knowing what to do at 23 years old.
Oh, wow.
But through God's grace and application, we were able to hang on. And
How many stations were there?
13. They had to sell 7 just to be able to pay the bills and grow a little bit. And then in the 70s, the family split up and went their separate ways. My father took 4 or 5 stations with him, and now he has a company with approximately 32 stations from the East Coast to the West Coast.
What kind of formats does he have?
Oh, you name it. Typically conservative talk or Christian talk are the primary formats. It deviates a little bit here and there with some music, but for the most part, it's almost all talk.
So how did that become you going off and getting involved with KAAM?
Well, it was we.
Okay.
I worked for my father at the time in 1999. Prior to that, maybe you get a kick out of this. In 1983, I was an intern in that room beside us here.
Here at KAAM.
Yes, I would go on the air with brother John McCoy, who was an afternoon host when it was Christian music, and it was a powerhouse radio station, and you were allowed to have music on the AM dial back then, and especially Christian music. So we owned Dallas, and John McCoy, Deacon Don Deacon Evans, and other people just spearheaded this program, this radio station, along with my father, and it was awesome. And we owned the airwaves and were very successful in the 80s.
So KAAM was one of the 13 stations owned by your father at
And
that
he kept-
point?
Right.
Okay.
It was actually called KPBC, though, named after my grandfather, Percy Bartimaeus Crawford.
Okay.
And some reason, whatever reasons, the station was floundering. And my father decided in the late 90s enough was enough. So John McCoy had left. He started his own radio station, ironically, which was KAAM, which was the nostalgia format that you now hear today. And he sold that station to Disney along with some other business partners of his, cashed out, did very, very well, and the format was basically dormant for 2 years. My father and he connected somehow in 99. We had a phone call with him, John, my father, and I. He convinced us we should resurrect this format through our radio station. So we did in, it was November 1st, 1999. John McCoy was the morning host again, and all the listeners came flooding back to the station because they were dying for it to return. And here we are 17 years later.
Very cool. Now, this is not the only one you own, though.
No, I have 2 Christian stations in Albany, New York. I have a Legends format on the FM dial, which is a little younger. It's more music from the 70s and 80s as opposed to this music, which is 50s to 70s, and the station.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you go from being an intern, though, to owning? I mean, was it? I assume there was some other stuff in the meantime.
There was.
I mean, you weren't qualified to be an owner whenever you were just an intern.
No, sir. No, I wasn't qualified for
So
anything
what else
when
did
I was
you
an
work?
intern. I wasn't qualified to drive a car. I was probably so lost back then, but they gave me a license anyway. So I was at Rutgers University in New Jersey, and then when I graduated, I went on to USC in Southern California and was able to get my master's in broadcasting management at the Annenberg School of Broadcasting. Walter Annenberg, who I think started the TV Guide. Remember the TV Guide?
Wow.
Yeah, there was a TV Guide at one time, and it was a big publication, one of the most widely read magazines in the whole country.
That and Reader's Digest.
And Reader's Digest,
Yeah.
and Life magazine and Time. Those were the big ones back then. So I went to his school, was able to somehow, by God's grace, get into that school and graduate. And then, like anybody else, started in sales, nowhere else but sales. My father insisted you start at the very, very bottom and you learn from the ground up. And again, was able to meet my requirements and quotas and sign business and bring in accounts and get them results on a radio station called KBRT in Costa Mesa, California, Christian talk station. And then ascended to management, then regional management. And then in 2005, my father and I decided it was time that we part company. And I bought this station from him and 4 or 5 others in the ensuing 5 years.
So I'm hearing New York, California, all these different places.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that you say Texas is your home.
Yes.
I know you travel a lot now. So how did that come to be?
Well, he felt this was the best opportunity for me because this is one of the stations he owned, and he wanted me, and I wanted to stay in radio, of course, when we parted company. So the agreement that we had during a 12-hour dining room table discussion back in suburban Philadelphia was to buy either a station in Denver or a station in Dallas. And he and I both agreed after ample prayer that the best thing to do was to come to Dallas, and smartest thing I ever did. Love it. Wonderful city, wonderful people. It only gets better. A lot more people coming. I don't know if they're Texans, but they're here.
Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it really doesn't. But they're finding out about our secret a little too quickly, I think. And I guess I'm just as bad because I too am a transplant. But I'm very grateful to live here.
Yeah, most of us are. So tell us, what's the difference in doing business in Dallas versus Albany, New York, versus the other places you have stations? Is there really any difference, or is it all
I think
the
it's
same?
the obvious. I think people here are very trustworthy and believing that it's a little more casual here. It's a little more arm's length in the New Yorks of the world. They have more of an edge and a distrust that is not as appealing to me as people in at least Dallas and Texas. I feel a warmth here, not just from the 105-degree summers, but from the people themselves. They appear to be more winsome, more affable, more willing to believe you, and that's good for me because that's the way I like to conduct business.
You know, we're going to broadcast this in your Albany station too, by the way.
Well, I'll have to preempt that somehow.
I'm teasing. So, what is the most challenging thing of owning a radio station?
People, which I'm sure your guests tell you all the time.
Which people?
Which people? That's an excellent question. Can we take a break and I get no?
In a minute.
Yeah,
You got 1 minute.
Because the business, my family's business, has been doing this for 55 years. We have a paradigm in place that we really feel we should continue to fulfill for as long as we can, for many, many reasons. There's so much formidable competition out there when it comes to other competing radio stations. There is so much other competition in terms of new technology and cell phones and Google Analytics and everything that we've gone full circle thinking we need to deviate here and branch out to this and add this and do that, or we're not going to be current, when in fact we've gone back to our traditional values and beliefs in terms of how we sell, how we market, and how we act as professionals. And that's really starting to pay off. But will this new generation accept and adopt those tenets?
All right, well, we're going to go to a break. We'll be right back with Don Crawford.
Stick around.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand. And landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
Hello, this is Carlos Vaz, the CEO of Country Organization. We buy and operate apartment buildings, and we invest in apartment buildings. I think it would be great for Bob and Steve to invest a little bit more on the show.
Welcome back to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. We're here with our guest, Don Crawford, owner and CEO of DJR, what is it?
Don,
Crawford, DJC.
still got to deal with every day.
Yeah.
That's all, folks.
A broadcasting station.
KAAM-AM.com.
There's a lot of DJR LLCs throughout my network, basically. So
Okay.
DJR is Don Jr.
Oh,
It's also Delivering Jesus Radio. So that's two ways for you to remember it, but it's DJRD as in Dallas.
I got into that and I was like, wait a minute, where's the C?
I'm the one that didn't shave, but what Bob didn't share is that he just woke up from a nap about
It looks
5
that
minutes
way.
ago.
It looks that way.
Hey, Don, before we went to the break, we were talking, and you had kind of touched upon, this split up with your dad of going different ways. It's something that I've experienced in my own journey before starting Alkali. Just, curious of, what caused that and what is different from when you were working with your dad versus being out on your own.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Having worked for him for 17 or 18 years, I don't know if it was a natural digression or not, but the way he wanted to continue to do business was something I was no longer necessarily subscribing to.
Okay.
I felt that he was applying wonderful general principles to specific situations and circumstances, in particular Denver, Colorado, where I worked and lived, that were mistakes. And I didn't agree with it, and I thought it would be very costly for us, tangibly and intangibly, to make some of these decisions and implement them. And one led to another, and the thing just kind of snowballed, hence that 12-hour dining room table discussion,
Sure.
which wasn't marshmallows and happiness by any means.
Wasn't kumbaya?
No, it was the farthest thing from that, and we realized it was time. But and the relationship was very strained at the time, but over time, like I think you mentioned with your father, things have healed tremendously, and we're best friends today.
Now, do you have siblings also that were in the
I have
business?
3 sisters, and they can't spell radio and want nothing to do with it. I think they realized that it would be quite difficult to work for an icon like my father, who is a marketing and sales genius, basically. He really is, and everybody would tell you that. And so they all went into Hollywood, if you can believe it. And they do think they both, 2 of the 3 live in Santa Monica or in the Hollywood industry. So go figure.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
They
used
must
to
be
live in
doing
Santa
something right
Monica.
if they're in Santa Monica.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I used to live there, and that's an expensive place to live.
Beautiful.
It sure is.
All right, so I want to go back to one other thing you mentioned before the break. You were talking about the format of your station here at KAAM, and you were expressing what it sounded like some figuring out how the new economy and the new media, internet, and all that business fits in with the old media of radio, and how have you navigated that, especially given the demographics of your listeners?
Well, we really decided we haven't changed. We've added Facebook here, websites there. I've frowned upon Twitter and things like that. But just as extensions of KAAM, honestly, the website, for example, that acts as our media kit for potential advertisers who would like to learn more about the radio station. We just simply send them to the website instead of handing them a stack of papers and with coverage maps and demographic information. But primarily, it's for streaming. to be able to listen to the radio station anywhere in the world. I know you can do that on your cell phone now, but it really is still through the website. And that's why we get to claim to this day, because we really focused on that. We're the most listened to nostalgia radio station in the country, via streaming.
Nice.
So it is awesome. It was never my intention. It just fell in our lap 2 years ago. Something I saw online, I tripped over and looked it up, and wow, we're #1. And I looked a week ago. I only look like every 6 to 12 months, but for marketing purposes and the like, that's quite the claim to fame. And again, something that was unintentional. So we just see it as God's blessing and something that indicates that we're doing something right.
You know, the iPad has become, for me anyway, almost like my media hub.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't really turn on the radio, certainly not at home. I stream everything through my iPad, all the apps, etc. And, you know, I watch Amazon TV and throw it up on Apple TV onto the big screen at the house.
That's
I mean,
great.
it's really amazing. It's become my alarm clock.
Yeah.
For the audience, or at least the younger audience tuned in, Bob's iPad has so many attachments attached to it. You could really call it a small laptop.
It looks like one.
Yeah.
And it
But
functions like
just so
one.
you know, I wanted to have you a visual image of Bob's iPad.
Has it made you a much better businessman? It has me. I'm so much more organized. I can't believe. And I have a laptop, Apple laptop, and no different from the iPad, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just came back from Europe, and that's the only thing I took. I didn't take a computer, although I'm about to get rid of my iPad and get a Surface so that it's fully functioning, unlike the iPad. But anyway, we're off topic here.
What's the biggest personal sacrifice you've had to make to build the station?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's been that much of a sacrifice. I guess now that you make me think about it, to get a bit personal, I decided that my circumstances were so unique, objectively, not in any selfish or bragging way. I was so honored to get to do what I get to do that I passed on having children. And at 53 years old in August, I doubt I'm going to. I'm terribly in love with my fiancée, Sarah, who is the CFO of this company that I own and run. And that's all I need for the rest of my life. So I'm going to miss out on having children. I think you both have children.
Yes.
So I think that's an ignorant sacrifice on my part and something that I may miss out on, but I don't lose sleep over it.
So you mentioned Sarah. Did you guys work together before you became a couple? Or
No, I met her in church.
Oh.
I was going to a Saturday night service over at Fellowship at Young's Church 9 years ago, and she walked in, and gentlemen, it was love at first sight. I'm not kidding you. I looked at that woman and said, "Oh, she's stunning."
How long did it take her?
Pardon?
How long did it take her to reciprocate
A
that?
couple years. And I had to get a lot of haircuts and surgeries, but nevertheless, I saw where she went in the sanctuary and noticed she was alone. I sat right next to her, and I don't think I heard one word of the service. My heart pounded so fast, so hard, so long, because I was just so spellbound by this woman. On the way out, I asked her what she thought about the message. She thought it was really great. I asked her if she'd like to have a cup of coffee. She said yes, but she has plans that night. I said, could I call her? I said, please forgive me, Lord, for doing this. I said, could I call you another time? She goes, sure. And then she called me a couple of days later and said that dinner I had Saturday night was with an old boyfriend, and we've resurrected the relationship, so I'm sorry I can't get together.
Wow.
I saw her 3 months later, was just heading to sanctuary on the Saturday night again, saw her, did a quick button hook, said, Sarah, right? She goes, yeah. I said, do you remember me, Don? She said, yes. And I got right to the point, guys. You still have that boyfriend of yours?
Always closing.
Right to the point. Always. She goes, no, that didn't work out. I said, can we still have that cup of coffee someday? She goes, sure. And then I choked. She said, do you still have my number? I said, yes.
Oh,
3
no.
months later.
Oh,
Isn't
my
that
goodness.
awful? I'm so embarrassed. And here I may not have it and lost the opportunity again. And I did have it. I called her, and the rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah, go
Great
figure.
story.
When did you start working together?
That was 2012. Sarah ran, she was vice president for Wells Fargo for 15 years, oversaw 12 banks, 12 here in Dallas, 14 in Miami, And then the banking industry got so complicated and ruthless that she realized that she could no longer do it anymore. It's all numbers, bang, 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 slam, slam, slam. And she said, I need to do something else. And I said, I'd love to have you. So she became the CFO and has done an incredible job.
Nice.
Thank you.
How's that? How's that been?
Good. Everybody was very fearful. They said, "Oh boy, you
Sure.
working together is not going to work." And we had one, for lack of a word, argument in 4 years, and it was my fault.
She was right, of course.
Oh, she was right.
Yes.
So the radio business must have changed over the years quite a lot. And I know that one of the things that I see a lot is that you have, like, your station is primarily a nostalgia music station, but Monday through Friday in the afternoons, it's not.
Right.
So why?
Because we don't have agency business that wants to just throw money at us for Verizon and Geico and McDonald's of the world like they do most other radio stations, because our, quote, demographic is too old. We don't want that 55 plus demographic, although we target the 45 plus. So we don't have that income like most stations do. So what we do is we compensate by running the talk programs from 1 to 4 o'clock Monday through Friday and on the weekends. And all of those programs pay us for that time, and it helps us pay the bills. And that's why we're able to do what we do, because there aren't that many nostalgia stations in the country anymore. There used to be a lot more.
Sure.
But then again, that's not the cool or attractive demographic, so they flip formats all over the place. Disappointing, but good for us.
You know, last night I went to the Winspear Opera House where they were playing the Broadway play called Beautiful, which is Carole King's life.
Sure.
What a great play that was. I really didn't want to go, but it was my wife's birthday. She said, I want to do it.
Right.
What am I going to do?
You're going.
And we took another couple.
Now I know why you're shaved.
And when we left, both of us guys said, well, that was way better than we thought.
Oh, really?
But what was cool about it is she was so involved in the music from the 50s, 60s, 70s and on. I had no idea.
Was she a writer?
She was a writer for the Shondells and for, all these people that are aired and played on your station every day. I had no clue.
I didn't either.
It was cool. You ought to go see it.
She's still alive?
I believe so. She's
Okay.
probably in her 70s now, I would
Okay.
guess. But yeah, you ought to go check it out. Your listeners would love that.
Yeah, thank you.
That
I will.
show.
Don, if we were sitting together 3 years from now and we were to look back to today, what needs to happen in your life personally, professionally, for you to feel satisfied with the progress you've made?
I have to make certain Sarah never leaves me. That's the first and most important thing.
Good job.
I've got to serve God better every single day. That really is the most important thing. The Sarah won a second, and it always will be that way. And that's an ongoing effort, of course. I would like to, of course, to be able to maintain all the radio stations' formats that we currently have. I don't want to be forced to change them because we don't have the right income in order to pay our bills. That's very, very important. I don't have to reinvent things. I don't have to conquer the world with new ideas. I just want to protect and preserve what we have because, in my mind, it's something very special.
So somebody that wants to get into the radio business, what would you tell them these days? What kind of insights or advice would you give them?
Our company is somewhat the exception because of how we do things. We're all about relationship and nurturing that relationship on an ongoing basis. We're not about numbers and ratings necessarily. We're more about return on investment and results for those clients. So if they think in those terms and think about having that face-to-face time with a client as opposed to just presenting them with numbers and analytics, I think they'll be much more successful.
Interesting. Well, Don, thanks for being our guest today. We've
Thank you
really
very
enjoyed
much.
it.
Thank you.
If our listeners would like to learn more about Don and his radio station, please go to KAAM-Radio.com. And if you want to learn more about the show, our show, it's at nextlevelshow.com. And of course, you can find us on all the social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Be sure to go like us on Facebook, where we post upcoming guests and future guests. So in case you can't tune in every week, you can see who's coming up and say, hey, I need to tune in for that one.
And we'll see you next week.
Make it a great week.
Thank you.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.